that stuff. Today, we're going to talk about, I don't think it's necessarily an addiction that we have, but it's our reality. We're going to talk about detoxing from busy. Because everybody's busy. Busy, busy, busy. In fact, you're so busy that the things that you need to do, the things that are important, you're like, I don't have time to do that, but you know what? I'll make time to do whatever it is and you fill in the blank. As if you've got some room in your house where you could just whip up some time and then boom, now I can make it. No, you know the only way to make time, right? Is you got to cut different things out of your life. Now, the difference between time and money is you can make more money. Congress does it all the time. They're just always printing more money. You can make more money. You cannot make more time. You can maybe lengthen your life. You can eat kale, drink spinach smoothies, and maybe you can lengthen the amount of days you're on earth. But in terms of like what you have to do in your day and how much time you have in your day, you've got 24 hours just like everybody else. And we need to, out of discipline, live with more margin in our day. If you have a calendar on your phone, everybody does. If you use your calendar on your phone, I do. I've got a calendar on my phone. I've got a calendar that's like an old school book calendar, and I've got something on my wall in my office because I don't want to miss appointments. And so I look at my calendar on my phone, and it organizes everything for you. And I'm like, there's so much overlap among the different things. How am I supposed to do all of this? And I literally go to bed not knowing what I'm supposed to do the next day, because if I do know, I have a trouble falling asleep. I wait till I wake up, have my Jesus time, and I look at that calendar and I think, okay, here we go. Good luck with this. And it's running around, you're running around like crazy. You got kids, you got multiple sports, you got all this stuff going on. And you fantasize as you're driving in your car, wouldn't it be great to have nothing to do today? So yesterday, because I know I'm preaching this sermon, I'm like, the kids and I, now Shanna was busy. She hasn't heard the sermon yet, so she'll repent and she won't be busy today maybe. But like, the kids and I, we didn't do anything. I got a deer Thursday, the last day of bow season, and so I was like, okay, I've got my deer, and the kids and I, we woke up, we played games, we watched TV, we drew pictures, we just goofed off all day. No agenda, no plan, nothing to do. Both of my kids said multiple times, this is the best day ever. This was the best day ever. We didn't go to Disney World. We didn't go make some big purchase, buy them a bunch of toys. We didn't get them the newest, nicest, best little gadget or gizmo. We did nothing all day. You know what they said? This was the best day ever, where they didn't have to run around and go to some practice and then follow that up with a game and whatever it is that we do on a day-to-day basis. Now, in different cultures, especially in Eastern cultures, missionaries that I talk to, they say, yeah, like Western cultures, we're unique, and that we see our day, we're so task-oriented. We're not people-oriented. So in Eastern cultures, it's like, well, when does church start? Like missionaries, they go and they're going to preach at a church. When does church start? And the response is when everybody gets here. When everybody gets here, church starts. Well, does that normally happen like at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m.? They don't have a concept of time. They gather together, they fellowship together, they talk, they laugh, and they're like, okay, I think everybody's here. We're going to start church now. One guy was telling me, he was a missionary, and he hired a couple of guys to come do some work for him. So they show up the first day, and they make breakfast. And they sit and they eat, and they invite him to sit at the fire. And they sit and they talk and they eat, and they go home. He said they didn't do any work. The next day they did the same thing. They sat and they talked, and he's like, hey, like you said, I hired you to do this, and like, when are you going to do it? It's like, we'll do it when we're ready and after we've spent time together. Well, as an American, you're like, we've got stuff to do. We've got tasks to accomplish. And in their minds, it's like, no, we've got conversations to have. We've got time to spend with one another. As Americans, we're like get out of here with the relationship stuff, spending time together, stuff to do, checklist. Our life is just one big checklist. That's all it is. And I think we could learn a little bit from the Eastern culture, and then they could probably learn a little bit from us as well. But here's what I think. I think that to God, work, tasks, effort, they are important. But it's so important to have rest and relaxation and spend time with Him and spend time with family, that of the top 10 things God gave Israel to do, commandment number 4 was honor the Sabbath, keep it holy. For 6 days you shall work, not on the 7th. You're going to rest. You're not going to do any work. You're going to spend time with your family. You're going to laugh together. You're going to pray together. You're going to worship me. You're going to read your Bibles. You're just going to spend time with one another as you spend time with me, and you're not going to work while you do it. And I think that's so interesting, because the Israelites didn't have jobs like we have jobs. And their kids didn't play sports like our kids play sports. And they didn't have different recreational opportunities like we have. And they didn't have technology like we have. Think about how much more important it is for us to monitor our time and monitor the margin that we leave ourselves on a day-to-day basis. If He's telling them to do it, and they had they had to work, that's it. We have all this other stuff. It's like, if it was true for them, that they needed to honor Sabbath and keep it holy because it's better for them, better for their society, better for their families, how much more is it true for us? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to be in Psalm 90. That's going to be the passage that we unpack today. If you've got a Bible, I want you to turn there. It's written by Moses. I know when you think Psalms, you think like David. Moses wrote this psalm. It's a song that the Israelites were supposed to sing. And it's a song that really highlights how much different we are than God in terms of our understanding of time and what time means to God versus what time means to us. And the way that Moses describes us is that we are so finite. We are like a breath in the wind or a mist that appears for just a moment and then we're gone. Like, we have no idea how limited our days are, whereas God is infinite. God has no beginning. He has no end. He is. And so we think, though, I think, and Moses we kind of think we're like God, and we just assume the way life is just the way life is going to be. And we don't even process or contemplate the fact that our days are numbered, that our lives have an expiration date, that the seasons of our lives have an expiration date. And if we knew that our life was ticking down to zero and it would eventually get there, we might spend our time on earth a little bit differently with that piece of information. So here's what he says in Psalm 90 as he compares the glory, the majesty, the timelessness of God compared to us. He says, Lord, you have been our dwelling place throughout all generations. Before the mountains were born. That's cool imagery, isn't it? Makes you think of that song, Country Roads, Take Me Home. Older than the trees, but younger than the mountains. Before the mountains were born or brought forth the whole world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. That's one of the hardest things to comprehend, even now. When did God get here? He's always been. There was no moment where there wasn't God. He didn't just show up, nothing created him. He's always been. And he's outside of space and time. He creates space and time. He creates all these things for his glory and indirectly for our enjoyment. That's hard to even fathom, isn't it? That God is so beyond us. We can't even wrap our minds around his existence. But we know how it is for us. It goes on to say, you turn people back to dust, saying, return to dust, you mortals. 1,000 years in your sight, God, are like a day that has just gone by, or like a watch in the night. From dust we were created, to dust we shall return. That though God is infinite and mighty and majestic, and though we were created in his image, we're just mortals. To God, 1,000 years is like a day. It's like a passing moment. To us, we can't even fathom 1,000 years. Like, think about how old America is. It's like 1/4 of 1,000 years. In our minds, America's been around, and we think America will continue because we don't understand how to number our days and that things are constantly changing. We live in the moment and only see what's in front of us, but God is outside of all of that and sees everything. Every moment that has ever and will ever exist in human history, God can look at it all and see every thought, see every action, see every hair on every head of every person at all moments for all of creation. God is so powerful and majestic, not just compared to us, but compared to anything. And so as God looks at humanity, he sees beings that are intelligent, that recognize there's more to life than just what we see, but yet don't organize their life as if their days are numbered. Like we talk about deer hunting, right? And you've ever grunted at a deer comes walking in, you know that deer's days are numbered, especially if you've got a bead on it, right? The deer has no idea. It didn't know any better. We should know better, and yet we live like we don't. Continues on in verse 5. He says, yet you sweep people away in the sleep of death. They are like the new grass of the morning. In the morning it springs up new, but by evening it is dry and withered. We are consumed by your anger and terrified by your indignation. You have set our iniquities before you, our secret sins in the light of your presence. All our days pass away under your wrath. We finish our years with a moan. So in our lives, and just remember how we were created. Humans were created to live forever in God's presence, to enjoy his company. He placed us in the garden. We were supposed to work there. Aging is a result of the fall. It's the result of sin coming in the world. So here Moses is saying, sin is in the world, so now you start to age, you get older, and it's not a fun experience, is it? Things start to hurt. Wrinkles start to appear. Grayness. If you have any hair on your head, the hair turns gray. And it's like, you just start to move down this path. And it's not necessarily directly because of your sin. It's just that sin is in the world. So sin is in the world. Aging is a reality of our lives. And so like the things that we try to keep secret, the things we try to hide, it's like, no, your sin is before God, and your life just continues on, and eventually you finish your years with a ugh. And then no matter how long you're here, 70, 80, 100 years, our days may come to 70 years, 80 if our strength endures, yet the best of them are but trouble and sorrow, for they quickly pass, and then we fly away. Remember that song, right? Some glad morning when this life is over. That the Christian perspective on death is, finally I can be in God's presence. Finally I can be reunited with loved ones. Finally I'll be made whole in this imperishable body that just continues to deteriorate and decay. I'll be given a new imperishable body. And when you think about your life, 70 years, 80 years, 100 years, whatever it ends up being, there's so much hurt and so much sorrow when you look at what eternity in God's presence is going to be like. There are a lot of people who may say, I've lived a pretty good life. And maybe you have compared to other people's lives, but not compared to forever in God's